travel and lifestyle writer Deborah Stone is back on Big Blend Radio today on our Champagne Sunday show, so I'm looking forward to her champagne toast. She's joining us to talk about her adventures in historic St. Augustine, Florida. It's the oldest city in America. Now, she's got in her article that's up on nationalparktraveling.com. It's going to be featured in the April-May issue of Parks and Travel magazine. Apparently, she saw human hair art, lighthouses, pirate history, historic national monuments, maritime history, and all kinds of good food. And she went to the Fountain of Youth. She saw dolphins, went on a nature excursion. She had a lot of chocolate, cocktails, all kinds of good stuff. And she stayed in a luxury like lodging, historic lodging.
Do you get to drink at the Fountain of Youth, or you just
get
to look
I
at
think
it?
she tried, or she did, but we'll find out what happened. So everybody, again, you can go to nationalparktraveling.com, just type in St. Augustine, and you'll find it there. Debbie is a regular Big Blend expert contributor, and you can see her expert page with links to our articles and interviews. Just go to blendradioandtv.com. Fire Monkey, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, ladies. How are you? I'm doing well. And speaking of that, you were asking me about the Fountain of Youth, or mentioning that. The Fountain of Youth, I did partake of the waters. Unfortunately, my wrinkles and my crow's feet are still there. So I didn't have any luck with the Fountain of Youth. I don't know if anybody else has stories about success with the Fountain of Youth, but for me, no, it was not. Although I really do think the Fountain of Youth, the archaeological park in St. Augustine, is absolutely fascinating. It's really, you were mentioning how it is a place of firsts, and it really is, because it goes back several centuries, and is the original site and the first successful European settlement in the United States. In fact, St. Augustine celebrated its 450th anniversary, being the longest continental occupied European settlement in the U.S., and they celebrated that back in September, I believe, of 2015. So it really is a place of first. It is where they had the first Christian church was built there in the United States. It really was this settlement. You're talking about Plymouth Rock, and really it was settled, 55 years before the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock.
So this would be the Portuguese or the Spanish?
The Spanish, yeah, it was Spanish. It was founded by a man named Pedro Menendez de Aviles, who came there, and a Spanish descent, and they had the first documented Thanksgiving feast there between the Europeans and the Native Americans. And it is, I found it was interesting, it is Florida's oldest attraction. They have these guest books that have been signed that go back to, the mid-1800s, which I thought was really interesting. And so there are exhibits, there are presentations. You can look at the archaeological research. They have nautical traditions there. They have weapons demonstrations. And, of course, you can, still drink from the waters and hope for the best.
I love this. I want to give everybody the website for St. Augustine if you're going to plan a trip there. It's floridashistoriccoast.com. It's a great way to follow along with what Debbie's talking about.
So,
and also, they corrected me when I went down there. It is St. Augustine, is how it's St. Augustine is how it's pronounced.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so they corrected me, so I'm going to correct you.
Well, thank you, Fire Monkey.
So maybe when you drink the water, it makes you younger on the inside, instead of on the outside.
It takes the wrinkles out of your intestines?
Yeah.
Well, it might make you young at heart.
Or young in spirit, or whatever. I know that Ponce de Leon, he had heard about some sort of, water that, gave back youth to people, and he was in search of it, but, and he was actually very obsessed with it as well. But it sure was a tantalizing motivation for me to think, maybe if I drink from this, I won't need any of those creams and moisturizers that I use.
Oh, he was probably thinking about about getting rich.
I know.
I mean, men have beards and
Yes.
sideburns and mustache, so you don't hardly see any wrinkles.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. But you know what's interesting? On the water side of it, you talk about some of the historic buildings and the college
Yes.
there, and then it was Mr. Flagler. Am I going to say his name right?
Yes,
where
Henry
he
Flagler.
built. Yeah, and it was interesting because you were talking about, he co-founded Standard Oil, and I remember in South Africa, Standard Oil was part of where you got your gas, or petrol as we said back then. And there, remember, it was a Standard Oil, and there was a Standard Bank, and I think that's also on the British side. But you were talking about some of the hotels, and we'll talk a little bit further about that. But there was like a sulfur spa there, like where you could go in a sulfur bath, and then like one of the places, it was at the Leitner Museum that was once the Alcazar Hotel, not Alcatraz, which I was about to say. That had the largest indoor swimming pool. Oh, so that was all at the Alcazar Hotel. So the baths, the sulfur baths, did they create those, or was that a natural occurrence?
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know if there actually were, springs there that they actually could use. I didn't hear in depth about that, and I didn't hear, whether there were actual springs. I do know that St. Augustine was a place back then that people went for their health, because of the weather. And so they had a lot of people from, the Northeast and the colder climates. They would come down there for their health. But this hotel that Flagler College used to be, that Flagler started, was this really upscale, exclusive resort property that really where the wealthy came to play, and also presidents came to stay, and was designed in this like Spanish Renaissance style, and it has all these like themes to it too, which are interesting. So whether it's nautical or a Spanish theme, or has religious icons and the lion, and so you're going to notice all these, flags and coats of arms and frogs and turtles and ships and dates of explorations. And the main lobby is just, you walk in and it's just whoa, it's beautiful with these oak pillars, this dome ceiling that's has been painted in carrot gold leaf, and there are floors that have mosaics. The funny trivia about that is you can look down, and our guide was saying, see if you can find any imperfections in the tile. So we're all looking, and all of a sudden we do find them, and she says, those are made on purpose. And we inquired why, and she said, well, Flagler believed that only God is perfect, and so he wanted to create these imperfections. And I thought that was a very interesting detail about that. And then you walk into the ballroom, which is now the college's dining hall, and there's these incredibly beautiful Tiffany windows, and then there's Tiffany chandeliers in the Flagler room. This is an interesting story about the Flagler room, which is a beautiful, beautiful private room. And it was once called the ladies' parlor because when they checked in, the women would go to have tea in the ladies' parlor. The men would stay out of that area, and they would, do the payment arrangements. And the idea was that the ladies, were too weak. The women were, had this weak constitution or frail constitution. They would faint if they were privy to any money talk, so to speak. So they had this very, heavy door where you couldn't hear anything. And so I thought that was fascinating. But
can I
other
just say,
fascinating point? Yes,
that's just wrong.
If they were going to faint, it would be more over tight corsets and humidity.
Yeah, that's probably it. But they had this belief then that they were just, just too faint, too weak to, their constitutions to handle the money talk. And the other funny thing when you go in this room is the guide will tell you, look at these two portraits. There's a portrait of Henry and there's a portrait of his wife Mary. And she says, notice that Henry, looks fairly youthful and has no wrinkles when he was much older than her by, many years. Mary, though, has Henry's wrinkles because he gave them to her because he didn't want to appear old.
Seriously, did he have a beard, mustache, and sideburns?
No, I mean,
and bushy eyebrows.
Funny.
Oh my gosh!
she looks older than him, and in the fact, the reality is that she was, I don't know, I at least 20 years younger than him, whatever it is. But he made the painter put in wrinkles on Mary's portrait, which I thought was hysterical.
That's
okay.
Me.
So can we just say I'm really glad that we are now in 2018, even though we still have a long way to go as women. Not us, but like the behavior, like how I'm just saying we still have a very long way to go, and but we've taken some big strides from that point of view. That's crazy. Do you know that why there's the fire screens? Why they're really there? It's for when, like in old history times, it's so that women's makeup wouldn't melt because they were using wax back in the day, and in their hair and on their face. So like if they're sitting there doing embroidery, so that they wouldn't melt, so that their husbands wouldn't see their face melt. This is pre-Botox time. We learned this at a plantation in Louisiana.
Those little curly cues of hair were really made from horsehair, not their own hair. I think that's funny.
Yeah.
So you waxed your horsehair to your face,
gelatin head,
and then you would be embroidering, and one of them would just fall off.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I want to back up a little bit because I'm very excited. You know how we love our national park units, and we're on our quest to visit and cover 417 national park units, all of them being, part of our National Park Service. And you got to go to two. One of them did get, you were saying in your article, hit by Hurricane Irma. And I remember, during the hurricane, St. Augustine being on the news going, no,
Augustine.
No. Augustine. Oh, my gosh. Okay. And we lived in Florida. Are you kidding me? I wasn't that far away from St. Augustine to get this wrong, but apparently I am. So you went to Castillo de San Marcos, which is it's a fort, really, right?
Right. It's the nation's oldest masonry fortress, I think, dating back to 1695, and it is a national monument, and it is available to tour. It is fascinating. It's this incredibly fortified, strong-looking place that has a dry moat around it, which they used. The Spanish, I believe, used it for keeping their animals. And then there's, you walk up to it. There's a drawbridge. There's this big, heavy door. It really was a military stronghold. It also was a refuge for the townspeople to come when they were under attack. And so there, you walk into the various rooms. There's several exhibits about the design, several exhibits about, where did the guards stay, where was the ammunition kept. There's a chapel where the priest used to conduct mass. There's a room where the British troops moved into when they came to Spain after Spain gave Florida to Great Britain in exchange for Havana, Cuba. And then you can go up to the tops of the bastions. You can look out on the waters of the bay, and you can kind of, understand. They stood up there. They watched over the area. They, during this a very turbulent time in history, and so. Thankfully, it's there. It's wonderfully kept up. They have park rangers who give talks and tours. They do demonstrations. It's really such a wonderful monument. Really worthwhile seeing.
Awesome.
So has that moat always been dry? Or is it just dry now?
Well, they kept it dry for animals. They could open it up supposedly if they wanted water in it, which means that if they were under attack, probably they could put water in there. But they typically kept it dry. Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the other monument that you had mentioned, Fort Matanzas, is there as well. I didn't unfortunately get to go there because, as we said, it was hit by Irma, and so far hasn't been open yet. You can go to the surrounding grounds and the visitor center, but you can't actually go to the fort. The last time I looked, hopefully that will change as they restore it and get everything up to snuff, so to speak.
I'm really glad that you went to St. Augustine because, but after the hurricane, because I think this is, it's always hard to get the news of what's open and ready for visitors to come back again. So I really love that you went there and, the article and having this conversation so people know to continue frequenting these areas. It's just like after the fires, in the West, in California, Montana, and, all these areas.
Right.
And it's going to, I'm hoping, we've already had wildfires out here in southern Arizona, real close to us. And I just, I want people to know not to just close your doors to revisiting, but sometimes there's times not to visit, but to go back to your favorite places or still go there and support them because, these communities, because it's one of the ways to help an economy get back on its feet and get back into operation and jobs. So I'm really glad you went there.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, before you go anywhere, check a website, do your due diligence in terms of your research and see, whether something is open because, there are also other reasons why places are closed at certain times during the year. And it's disappointing for visitors if they come and they've been setting their hopes and sights on seeing something and it's closed. So if you know ahead of time, you can, avoid that disappointment,
It's like government shutdown. It was like what was open, what was closed. When we were on our tour of national parks and there was a government shutdown, people, there were people flying in for weddings in Yosemite, and and it was sad. Yosemite just went through a huge wildfire, and then we went and made a detour to go up there right after, and then the shutdown, and it's like, oh man, and then it was like, hey, everybody, it's open, come on. It's like,
Well, and then also we have to say, especially in that area where what the press was saying was totally really blown out of proportion as to the damage that you could go to Yellowstone and have a really
Yosemite,
good time. Yosemite and have a good time and not see any burned areas at all. And the way the press talked about it is the whole place burned down.
Yeah.
So it's worthwhile going at the very least going to the Park Service website that will tell you the truth. If
absolutely.
Just take everything.
Do your diligence.
Yeah. Go to the Visitor Bureau websites. Go to the Chamber of Commerce. Call them if you need be. But I'm really glad. That's the thing too about having these communities. If something has happened where a park has to be closed, go visit the communities themselves.
Right.
And St. Augustine, definitely. I mean, it seems like you had a blast. I mean, food.
Oh, it's a marvelous, marvelous town. So charming, historical, a food haven, art. I was extremely impressed with the town. It is so worthy of visit. It really is in itself a destination, and not to mention that there are lots of beaches around the area and also natural areas, and so people can come for a variety of reasons. But it really is, being the nation's oldest city, it really is something to see and very exciting and fascinating.
And now, Leitner Museum. So this is interesting because do you think American pickers would enjoy going there? It's kind of like started with someone similar to that, right? Otto Leitner, he was into collecting, right?
Yeah, he was from Chicago, and he had this quote that everyone should have a hobby and everyone should collect something. And so back in the 1930s, when things were hard hit in Chicago and mansions, people were selling their stuff or giving away their stuff, he went and collected quite a lot of wonderful treasures. And then when his possessions outgrew his home in Chicago, which was like almost a museum, he had come to Florida for health reasons, and he noticed the Alcazar Hotel was vacant, and so he bought it to put his collections in. And so it is the Leitner Museum. It's a wonderful place, another historical structure as well, but lots of different galleries with artwork, with antiques, with curios. There's mummies and shrunken heads, and you were talking about human hair, which is made into, human hair art, which has been made into, jewelry and, all sorts of wonderful things, Tiffany and art paintings, furniture. I was there when they happened to have this wonderful exhibit. It is left the Lightner, but it was the Dressing Downton, Changing Fashion for Changing Times, having to deal with the wonderful costuming that was awarded so many, distinctions for the series, for the long-running series for Downton Abbey. And so they put these costumes up in these wonderful vignettes using Lightner's, furniture and objects, and it was probably one of the best exhibits I've seen. I was a big fan of Downton Abbey, so this was particularly fun for me to see that. And it goes through all the eras, the 1912, the year the Titanic sank, and then it goes up until the Jazz Age, and kind of the flapper style costuming, and it was wonderfully done. And the museum is just a real treasure, I think. There's also this really cool restaurant in where it used to be this big swimming pool, so they have this wonderful restaurant in there, the Alcazar Cafe, and it's a real treat to go in there. You really feel like you're transferred back in time. It's wonderful.
Shrunken heads. That's crazy. And mummies. I love mummies. I remember seeing the one and I know, but that was a thing back in the day. They
yes, it was.
I don't know, put them in a jar of alcohol, but it's like, hey, we want to make a miniature head. Why not? But the mummies. Remember,
I thought the pygmies did that.
I think they're just little. I don't know.
Little people heads? What?
I don't know. Don't start me. But the mummy thing in Pretoria, South Africa, we went into this museum and you could see the mummy's toe.
Yeah,
and to this day,
bandage.
It's one of the top 10 things I've ever seen in my life is the mummy's toe.
And it wasn't pink either.
No, it was pretty gnarly. Did you see anything did you see any body parts outside of the mummy wrapping?
No, they're pretty much wrapped up. I've seen a lot of mummies also in various parts in Egypt and different places. But they became things like that, and shrunken heads and things like that became collector's items for various individuals with eccentric collecting habits, so to speak. And so the fact that they're now in museums and people can see them is quite interesting, and also to understand that is somewhat of a an art form in some ways that people look at, but it is something that is collectible. And back then, a lot of people, the rich were collecting these types of fascinating curios, so to speak.
Like the human hair art, the first time we saw that was in Yerington, Nevada, at the Lyon County Museum.
Places.
And I just put it up on Instagram a few days, and it's like, I Googled it, and you just don't find that much information, but apparently it was like a Victorian thing. But this lady didn't do it as jewelry. She did it as like an embroidered, design. And so it was framed. And it was all different colors, and I mean, it was intricate as can be, and it's so cool. And it's like, okay, now
you made lace with it.
Every time I brush my hair, I'm like, any hair come out? Like, what can I do with it? She was tatting hair. Yeah, it was like tatting.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Okay, so before we go back to St. Augustine, Debbie, have you been to the Thing? Down in, when you drive from Arizona through New Mexico, you see the big billboards, the Thing. You've got to go to the Thing. Have you been
I haven't been to the Thing. No.
Apparently there's a mummy in there, but from everyone, I think it's in Southern Arizona. Everyone's like, do not go. It's like a fake mummy.
I think it's $1.
Yeah, it's like one of those,
Oh no.
it's like a kid shop. I don't know. So I just wanted to know if you've been in there. Well, when we go there,
I haven't been there.
Okay, I know you like to hang around New Mexico and Arizona, so I was just wondering about that.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum. I know, Nancy, I knew as soon as you were putting up her article today, Nancy's all
pirates.
Her. And so
hire me, matey. Yep.
I know.
It is it's I kind of was skeptical. I thought, this is probably gonna be kind of kitschy and for children or whatever it was. But I was really impressed because it's done so well, and there are also so many authentic artifacts on display. There's let's see, Captain Kidd's family Bible. There's a piece of Sir Francis Drake's ship. There's Thomas II, who is borrowed his original treasure chest. There is one of 3 original Jolly Roger flags still in existence. There is, the original of the first wanted poster in the world, and even some film memorabilia like the sword that Johnny Depp used in the Pirates of the Caribbean film. And so to me, it was, it surprised me in a wonderful way, and I think it's great for not only kids and families, but also for adults. I enjoyed it, and I think everybody is kind of we like that pirate lore, and we like that, and but this was more than just Disney. This was the real thing in my mind.
I like Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Well, okay.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
I just Jolly Roger flags. I want to see a Jolly Roger flag. I mean, and who said, okay, who is Jolly Roger? Now I have to go.
He's the happiest pirate.
I know. It's like hi ho, I'm a pirate. Off we go.
That was the dwarf.
I know it's a dwarf, but I mean, I am a Jolly Roger. Could you imagine? I'm going to come steal the rum off of your ship because I'm Jolly Roger. That's kind of
I mean, I think the fascination is there with most people, and but the truth of it is piracy was this very bloody reality back then in those 16th centuries, 17th centuries, and England and Spain were rivaling each other and attacking each other's ships, and St. Augustine was this pivotal point on the trade route. So pirates and privateers, they would target it, and so it does have a lot of pirate history there, which is very colorful, and of course I think is definitely an attraction for many tourists.
I love it. And the other part, too, is the Maritime Museum, the St. Augustine Lighthouse and the Maritime Museum. I love that you went into a lighthouse because those are, like, to me, national treasures. And they really are.
Oh, yes, definitely. I don't ever pass up the opportunity, and I love to go walk up to the top of the lighthouses. I love getting those views, and this one is still in working order. It still does what it's to do, and you can climb those 219 steps to the top. You can look at that very interesting historical lens that they have, and you can go into the keeper's house across the way, which is now a museum, which gives you an idea of what life was like for the keepers and their families. And then they have a newly opened archaeology, and education center where they have this conservation lab and this research library, and you can see via a television that zooms in on what they have actually found and the objects that they are looking at and evaluating. So it really is wonderful. Plus, then there's also these great volunteer wooden boat building people, and they're out there as well, and they're creating and from the ground up these wooden boats that they then display, and it's everything cool. It's a lovely place. It's one of the high points of St. Augustine, and definitely a must see in my mind.
You know that all those lighthouses are all haunted, right? You know that.
And we know how you love to go to haunted places. That's true, Hey, speaking of that, where you stayed, okay, because the Collector Luxury Inn and Gardens. Okay, seriously, I was looking at this. This is incredible. Like, I want to go there. I could live there. And everyone, check it out. Go to thecollectorinn.com. So these are like these 9 historic houses, and so I've got to ask. I know that there's all kinds of other lodging, but do you think that any of these historic homes were haunted?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, there's, they had quite a history, and so anything that is old, as we well know and we've mentioned before, anything that's old and that has history, that something happened or the people lived there, whatever it is. There's, I think that there still does reminiscence of of that time, and whether they manifest themselves in different ways, we don't know. But I still think that historical sites are definitely ripe for those apparitions that people talk about, or even those feelings that people talk about. Now, I stayed there several nights. I never had any issues in terms of seeing or feeling or anything. It's this gorgeous luxury property that has been meticulously restored, with all these beautiful period decor, but it also has modern amenities, so you don't lack for anything. I just loved it because it was so beautifully done on the grounds with these historical homes, and every room is different. And they had to me, it was one of those unique properties that that maybe some people aren't aware of that's there. It's newly opened. I think it's only been there maybe a year. I can't remember exactly, but it is new, and so it is definitely something to put on your list. Although St. Augustine itself is, of course, full of wonderful, charming, B&Bs and inns and other types of properties. I felt that this one was quite special.
And I love the gardens because of all the sculptures and, fountains and wrought iron gates. I love that. But just looking, to me, there's something about Florida with the gardens.
Yes.
And, the South does gardening well, okay? Like it is.
They have all that humidity.
Yeah.
It really helps.
It's so good.
Yes.
Especially if you don't have a green thumb, move to Florida.
I know.
It's easier.
Everything grows. Everything
grows.
I
know.
Yeah, for sure.
I know. So because I know there's the old town of St. Augustine. I'm getting it right now. I'm into the St. Augustine mode. I can keep saying it now.
Good.
But was the downtown or the old town? Was it a lot? Were there a lot of plants? Is what I want to know for
yes,
walking around and.
Beautiful little pocket gardens, beautiful flowers, very colorful. I found that the section of the city is to me, just one of those beautifully walkable areas. Most of St. Augustine is very walkable with the areas that you'd like to visit, but it's remarkably preserved. It's, wonderful little shops and galleries and accommodations, but there's these little narrow brick streets. There's these stone walls. There's those, balconies. It looks a little bit European to me. The ambiance is very European. And so, it's, you walk through there, it's walking, kind of back in time, and very
That's
authentic, cool. And a showcase of fascinating, great architecture as well.
Nice.
It's so important when you travel, you take the time and to travel. You want to go where you get a totally different feeling.
Yeah.
Something very unique. And it's just good to hear when when cities just become like these great big square box things,
right?
With no personality.
It's a running theme. Well, that's why tourism is. I mean, that's what travel is all about. Is to see something unique,
see something different.
But I love that. One of the photos you sent me was like cobblestone streets, and I have a thing about cobblestone streets. Like, was it brick or cobble?
Yeah.
Like, was it brick?
It's stone, I believe. I think it's stone.
Wow.
Yeah, from what I remember, it's wonderful. The oldest street is that Avila Street, which is the oldest. I believe it's the oldest street in the nation. And so to me, that it's just charming. When you're walking in there, you're like in another world, and you're talking about how it's like nice to be transported to different places. I think St. Augustine is one of those definite places where you feel like you are really a part of that history, and to me it's a city with like so much personality, really.
Yeah, it's brick. I'm looking at it again. It just, it was so funny because when I saw that photo first, my immediate thing was that it's like it's a painting. Like I didn't look at it as a photo. It just was like a painting.
Yeah.
Someone could paint that really nicely. But I mean, just even looking at the images, like Flagler College. I mean, the ceiling.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the ceiling, and then
it's gorgeous.
When you were at the San Marcos National Monument, Castillos de San Marcos, looking at those cannons, like the work on the cannons themselves, like the ammunition wasn't just like, here's your cannon mass produced. This is like they made it ornamental, man. It was like ornamental, weaponry. It's really fascinating, the attention to detail when you go to places like St. Augustine. I mean, Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Now the other thing is, we were talking about flower power in Florida, but you went on a boat ride and apparently learned some other words too. Is it peduncle?
Yeah, this is funny. This is the St. Augustine Eco Tours, a great company owned by Zach McKenna, and he's a wonderful, passionate devotee to the environment. He's an interpretive naturalist. He's wonderful in terms of that, but he likes to do the word of the day, and he likes to impart knowledge. And I think that the one word that he was telling me was peduncle, Peduncle, and supposedly it is a part of the muscular area of the dolphin that provides that up and down swimming motion, the power for that motion. And he's just, he's a wealth of knowledge, and the tour is lovely because, you're going, through these estuaries, and he's talking to you about the creatures that are living there, like the bird life, which is amazing. And of course the bottlenose dolphins, which are, really popular, a hit for people to go and see. And I saw some of those, popping their heads up, and it was wonderful. But it's great because it gives you a whole different side of the city. You're there in the historical city and walking around with all the historical sites, and then you're out on the water, and it's another world for you. And I happen to love nature, and so I seize every opportunity I can to do some sort of eco tour or nature activity, because I really think that we need to be very cognizant of our environment, extremely cognizant.
So there's Debbie on the boat, and a dolphin jumps out, and she's, my, what a big peduncle you have.
Oh, my. Well, I'll champagne toast to that. The other thing, too, you said was Anastasia State Recreational Area, so there's hiking, and so you could go camping and bird watching, and that to me is like get out in nature and soak it up, because these places are becoming fewer and fewer, and so get out there and enjoy
peduncle watching.
Soak it up in a natural style. Now I know that Debbie loves nature and she loves history and she loves the culture of a place, but one thing she really does like to do is eat. Just saying from our conversation. And I mean, you wouldn't know that from looking at your photo, right? But you do a lot of hiking, so she's allowed. She manages it very well. But it seems like you did have your fair time of eating your way around St. Augustine.
It's called sampling little bits. You know what I mean?
Okay,
it's like tasting little bits, and that's the way you do it. But St. Augustine is really a foodie town, and they have some wonderful restaurants, specializing in seafood, fresh seafood, seasonal creations. Several of the restaurants will tell you where that seafood comes from, where they're getting their fruits and vegetables, and where they're getting their meat, and which boats brought in what fish for the day. And so you really can see that authenticity when it comes to food and purveyors. And it's just, to me, it was a delight to eat in St. Augustine, at such places like Catch 27, Michael's Tasting Room, Cafe Alcazar, as I mentioned before, the St. Augustine Seafood Restaurant. And then the one thing that's very popular is our food tours. And I did several of those, which I absolutely love, because it gives you a real sprinkling, and it gives you a real sprinkling or a real sense of the different types of food that they have there. And so anyway, those to me are highlights, just because, like I said, I do enjoy eating, I do enjoy tasting, I do enjoy imbibing, etc.
Well, but I like the sampling, and I think that's the thing, that's the trick. I know that, especially when you first start doing, the food, wine, travel writing experience, and you go on these media tours, and it's one of those first hardcore lessons that you learn is don't finish it. Don't take the samples. Like, don't finish the whole meal, because right after you're done with that meal, here comes another one. And all of a sudden, your waist will say to you,
me.
Dude, don't do that. And so it's true. To get a little sample of, and I love places that stick to their regional food. You know, obviously you're going to have something else, but that when you get a taste of the town. I love that. You know,
yes, and so like St. Augustine, they have a very popular chocolate factory there, a tour called Whetstone Chocolate Factory, and was a family-run business that started, I think, back in the 60s with ice cream, and then the couple, the Whetstones, started making fudge, and then that turned into all this wonderful artisan chocolates, and so the tour is great because you learn about the history, you learn about, you know, chocolate, making chocolate, and then you do this wonderful educate your palate kind of part of the tour where, of course, that everybody loves that because you get to sample all these wonderful different types of chocolate, whether it's dark or milk or white or whatever. And so that is a real hit with tourists. And then, you know, on the other side of the coin is the distillery, St. Augustine Distillery. And it is truly, once again, it's in this very historic building that they have done an incredible job renovating and have received awards for it. And you can learn, you know, all about how they use the agriculture in Florida and the products there, and they turn them into vodka and gin and rum and bourbon. And then, of course, you get to imbibe in a variety of cocktails. And they make the cocktails right in front of you like a demonstration kitchen. So you get to see how they're made. And, you know, you get to sample things like, you know, rum drinks and old-fashioned. And it's a big hit. It's a big hit with tourists. I think that distillery tours, just like wine, you know, visiting wineries, you know, are very popular. And so that was wonderful. And then they have this company called the Tasting Tours that does these incredible Corks and Forks tours, which I found it was, you know, it's this 3-hour wonderful. You are walking though, which is a good thing.
Good.
And, you eat or drink your way through St. Augustine to sample some of the creatively prepared dishes, the ingredients that they use, and boutique wines, and you know, you get a guide, hopefully, like the one I had. Her name was Donna. She is a St. Augustine native who went to Flagler College, and she had a wealth of information, and she is very passionate about her town, and it showed, and it made for a very fascinating and delightful evening.
You know, I want to go back to the distillery because I think it is fascinating. Well, no, the one thing about Florida was the rum drinks were exceptional. They know how to use rum, and I remember like beach views and you know, some of the bars being out on the water, and you know, it's just super cool. But the one thing I wanted to touch on was that the building itself was the first commercial ice plant, or Florida.
Right. That's. Yes, it is Florida's first commercial ice plant back in the 1917, something like that. But it is definitely a very interesting building in itself, and they've done a wonderful job to renovate it. I thought it was just a very cool experience. They have a little museum, and then you go into the place with the barrels, and you know, where they're making it, and then you go into the, you know, tasting rooms where they're creating it, and it was one of these really nicely done tours, which I thought, you know, I've been to a lot of different, you know, food tours and distillery or, you know, wineries. This one was done very, very well.
Now let's talk about the peace pie, because Debbie always finds some favorite local munchie that she has a thing about, and apparently the peace pie is your thing.
Oh my gosh. I'm like salivating and dreaming of peace pies, and I could actually order them and have them delivered to me, but that would be a really you know, that's a really tempting situation, and I could get into a bad habit with that. But this is a family-run establishment. They have several locations. I think New Jersey, South Carolina, now Florida. But it's this like ginormous. You know, you get ice cream and then this layer of pie filling between these like really heavy duty shortbread cookies that hold it in, and the flavors that they've come up with are just amazing. I mean, they're incredible. It's like peanut butter chiffon or key lime pie or salted brownie or pumpkin latte. You know, they're very creative in their flavors, and they're very addicting. Let's just put it that way.
I just feel like one could go well with champagne, like the salted brownie and champagne. Yeah, I'm just thinking it could make a good champagne sundaes. I don't know. Yes. It just sounds good to me. I mean, why not? eat your ice cream for breakfast. There's nothing wrong with that.
Eat it any time. Eat it any time,
Exactly. I'm liking this. So the other thing is, too, you talked about when you were staying at the Collector Luxury Inn and Gardens, that, you're right there, you can go and have a cocktail at the wall, and that's another first over there in that building.
Right. And that is the first, what was it, the two-car garage, I believe. It was the first one in the city. And so it's this wonderful, stone building on the resort's property. And, it's this cute, intimate, cozy bar that also does a few little special food plates. But the bartenders there are very wonderful. So you can, tell them if you like a specific, do you like rum? Do you like, what is it you like, and gin? And then, do you like fruit? Do you like berries? Do you like herbs? Whatever it is. And they will go ahead and just make something for you and just based on your taste. So they will do these, very original drinks that are, cultured to your specific liking. And, they're big on the herb infused drinks, which I think are getting extremely popular. And so I found that to be a delightful experience. And then outside on the property, there are these, you can sit, around these outdoor fire pits that they have and enjoy just this wonderful ambiance. It's really a great property.
I love this. I love that you're doing so much in the South. This is so cool. I want to give everyone the websites again for the Collector Luxury Inn and Gardens. It's thecollectorinn.com. I love, when buildings are repurposed and, upgraded and made into something functional where people can go and enjoy it, especially the public. I know people renovate historic homes, which I
love that.
I could geek out on the Home and Garden channel for hours watching historical property renovations. It's terrible.
As long as they keep it.
And then I know, but it's like if money was no option, I would that would be like a second career for me. It would just be going and buying up historic buildings everywhere and restoring them so that we don't lose them. But when people can stay in them, I feel like you're getting what it was like back then to live in this community, but in a luxury way, like with the Collector Inn. So I really hats off to them, because I know that is such hard work to not only renovate them, but then make it where the public can come out. I mean, it's and stay there.
Absolutely. It's to me, it's a labor of love, and people who do that, they have a real passion for historic preservation and for, repurposing, as you say, and letting the public experience that. Otherwise, those buildings would, crumble, and nobody would ever, visit them or even knew that they were there,
And the gardens, I mean, this is awesome. So thecollectorinn.com, everyone. And then again, the other website is Florida's with an S, floridashistoriccoast.com. And Debbie's article, you can see it now on nationalparktraveling.com, and it'll also be featured in the April-May issue of Parks and Travel magazine. The current issue is out right now, so you can go to nationalparktraveling.com and see it. It's the February-March issue, and you will see Debbie's article on historic Las Vegas in northern New Mexico, the original and authentic, and talk about history and renovating historic buildings. It's interesting, you getting into the history of Flagler, and what he's done in going in and creating these buildings. He kind of reminds me of Mr. Harvey, Fred Harvey from creating the Harvey houses. So it's just interesting how these people go around and build these, and then people come in later and save them. So good stuff.
Right.
But before you go, we want to know what you're toasting to. It's Champagne Sundays,
Well, I have a special toast. My father, Fred, just turned 95.
Wow.
And so I am sending out my toast and my congratulations to my father, my dear father, for 95 years.
Oh, I toast to him. That means we can have another bottle of champagne, right?
Cool.
Pop that one open. Get the Magnum out. Oh, well, toast to your dad. Congratulations. 95 is good. You see, that's that fire monkey spirit. I bet you he's a fire monkey, too.
Yeah, probably.
I bet you. See, that's good. That's good. So just eat a little bit, hike, and then you can be like Bob and his daughter Debbie. See? That's how to do it.
And his name is Fred.
Oh, Fred. I thought, why did I say Bob for some always Bob. I don't know why.
Congratulations on your new name as well.
I know, and as I said that, I went,
right.
did I do that right or wrong? And I'm not having any champagne at all. Debbie, I do have your name right, but okay, so you're going to be back on our show in a week from now, less than a week. Yeah, just in a few days here. Debbie will be back on February 9th to talk about her time in Oxford, Mississippi. So you are covering the South a lot, and so you want to give everyone a sneak preview of that so people know to tune in and check out your new article?
Wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to it.
All right. So did you hear what I said about giving everyone a quick preview about Oxford?
Oh, you want me to give them a sneak preview about Oxford?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oxford. I think it's a southern gem of a city. It is steeped in history as well. It also has this deep literary connection with Faulkner, who lived and worked there. The greats of like John Grisham, who worked there and did his writing there. It is also the site of Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi. It once again also has this wonderful southern Gothic architecture, a good burgeoning food scene, and delightful art scene as well, with incredibly hospitable people.
Cool. Excellent. Everybody, again, Debbie will be back on February 9th to talk about Oxford, Mississippi. And you can keep up with Debbie's articles. Go to blendradioandtv.com, and you can click on her in the expert department. And when you click on Debbie, she will go, I'm a fire monkey. No, I'm kidding. You can read her articles and listen to her interviews. So, Debbie, of course, we have to have music for you, right? Because
yes.
Yeah, this one is called Oceanfront Walk, since you were at the beach. And when I think of Florida, sometimes the blues scene was always really big when we were living out there. And this is from Johnny Mastro and the Mama's Boys. It's off of an album called Pinch That Snake. And it's about pinch the snake
behind the head
before it bites you, basically.
Yes.
I love it.
So here it is, Oceanfront Walk. And everyone, you can learn more about Johnny Mastro and the Mama's Boys out in New Orleans. Go to johnnymastro.com. Thanks so much, Debbie.
Thank you, Gail. Talk to you soon.
All right. Okay, take care.
Care.